If you haven't been living under a rock, then you undoubtedly know that Disney has purchased Fox, which means that as a fan of Dragon Ball, you should be absolutely ecstatic. The reason why is this opens up the door for us to finally get a proper live-action adaptation of Dragon Ball on the big screen. Look no further than what Disney has done with the Star Wars and Marvel Cinematic Universe. Bob Iger basically stepped out of the way and allowed for these movies to be made without interference from the movie studio by placing fans in charge. Kathleen Kennedy plays a major role in the new Star Wars films, and she's a huge Star Wars fan. The same is true of Kevin Feige over at Marvel, who also played a major role in the production for Spider-Man 1 and 2 of the original trilogy by Sony, and with the first X-Men movie, which was handled by Fox. It's also worth noting that both of these films were credited with ushering in the modern wave of superhero films. It's also worth noting that the Star Wars films and the MCU movies, for the most part, have performed exceptionally well at the box office and with critics, and most importantly with the fans themselves. With Disney now owning these rights to Dragon Ball, there's a world of possibilities open to the franchise. To understand why, unfortunately, you have to first go back to the Dragon Ball Evolution movie and look at why it failed. The movie was produced on a budget of only $30 million, which, to put into perspective for you guys, is less than what Deadpool was made on, and Deadpool used minimum CGI in the film, so you can understand why Dragon Ball Evolution looked cheesy as it did. It's also worth noting that the screenwriter for the film came out a couple years ago and basically said that he knew nothing about Dragon Ball and he only took the job for the script because he had bills to pay. Looking at Disney's track record, so far we can assume that this is not going to happen under their watch. Looking at the budget for Dragon Ball Evolution, obviously $30 million is too little, but more than $30 million was actually spent on this movie. The number only reflects the production budget. In most cases, Hollywood will likely spend roughly the same amount as production as they will for promotion on a film, which now bumps the cost of the movie up to around $60 million. Then, when you add in the hidden studio costs, and the movie comes out to be about $100 million, which is the number that Chris Masters, the actor who played Piccolo in the film, used when he talked about the movie. Now, going back to Disney, they know they have a huge property on their hands. Dragon Ball is the #2 selling manga of all time, giving up the title to #1 to One Piece a few years ago. But most importantly, Disney now has a property that has sold more copies than Spider-Man. If you think Disney isn't going to make a live-action Dragon Ball movie, you're absolutely crazy. Now, I'm sure someone in the comment section has already written, Fox only owns the distribution rights to Dragon Ball, and that Toei Animation is the only one allowed to produce Dragon Ball movies. However, to use this argument is to only understand half of the situation. Production rights and distribution rights are two different things. Toei Animation has the right to produce animated Dragon Ball films, but Disney now owns the rights to distribute Dragon Ball films in North America. To go even deeper, Dragon Ball Evolution was distributed by Fox, but Fox was not the producer. Star Overseas is the one responsible for producing the film, though Fox was responsible for finding the director and the screenwriter for it. However, the most important thing here is that Fox still owns the rights to distribute Dragon Ball in North America because Revival of F was released in theaters a few years ago. ROF was produced by Toei Animation, but the reason the movie was released here in America is that Fox owns the North American distribution rights to Dragon Ball. Those rights aren't just for live action films, but also for animated movies, at least in the scope of North America, which is why Disney now owns the rights to Dragon Ball, since Fox did put something in theaters a few years ago, which means that the terms of the original agreement have not been violated. The same thing happens in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Disney distributes the films, but Marvel produces, which is what they will now do with Dragon Ball and what Fox just did. And if you go back to the original Iron Man movies, Marvel was not the only producer there, so that's another nugget to think about. You can be sure that Disney will spend more than $30 million on a Dragon Ball movie, especially if they go the route of Dragon Ball Path to Power, which combined the Pilaf saga and the Red Ribbon Army saga. Even if you do a Saiyan Saga movie, it can be made without breaking the bank on a budget. If Disney were to spend $130 to $150 million on production, that would mean that the movie would cost roughly $375 to $400 million to make when you include production and promotion. Most of the budget would likely be saved for the Goku vs. Vegeta fight, but a majority of the movie wouldn't be too hard to make. The Raditz fight, for all intents and purposes, is pretty short. The Z Fighters vs. Nappa fight isn't too terrible in length and can be abbreviated for the big screen. The film would likely still turn a profit, and the amount of CGI that would be used for this wouldn't be too over the top. If Marvel can make a cosmic movie like Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor 3, which cost about $165 million to make, then we can assume that they could make a Dragon Ball movie without blowing the bank. But those are just my thoughts on this matter, guys. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have an awesome day.